These white stones are worth more than gold, not diamonds. What makes something truly valuable? Is it rarity, beauty, or simply the price someone is willing to pay? History offers a very different answer. Long before diamonds became the world's ultimate luxury, and long before gold defined the wealth of kings, a handful of extraordinary white stones had already earned a place that no precious metal could replace. Some secured the earliest trade between civilizations. Others were carried across deserts under armed guard, carved into sacred rituals, or buried beside emperors who believed they were more valuable than earthly riches. These weren't the brightest gemstones. They weren't always the rarest, yet they shaped cultures, inspired beliefs, and became symbols of power for thousands of years. Today, most people have forgotten their stories. In this countdown, we'll uncover 10 remarkable white stones that ancient civilizations valued more than gold, not because of what they were worth, but because of what they meant. And by the time we reach number 1, you'll discover the only white stone that became more than a treasure. It became the soul of an empire. Number 10. White agate. Long before signatures, passports, or written contracts existed, trust rested on something surprisingly simple: a smooth white stone small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. Across the ancient Near East, merchants carried it through deserts and across dangerous trade routes, because losing it could mean losing an entire fortune. The remarkable part wasn't what the stone was worth, it was what it represented. That stone was white agate. More than 5,000 years ago, artisans in Mesopotamia carved white agate into cylinder seals that served as personal identities for kings, merchants, and temple officials. Rolled across wet clay, each seal left behind a unique impression that verified ownership and authenticated trade. In a world without signatures or legal documents, these tiny white stones became the foundation of trust. Their value wasn't measured by weight like gold. It came from the authority they carried. Nature had quietly given white agate the qualities needed for that role. Formed over millions of years as silica-rich water slowly filled cavities inside ancient volcanic rock, its microscopic quartz crystals created an exceptionally tough surface that resisted wear. A finely carved seal could survive decades of daily use while preserving every intricate detail, making it one of the most dependable materials available to early civilizations. But here's the twist. Archaeologists have discovered that many ancient white agate seals were buried alongside their owners, rather than passed down to heirs. Their importance was so personal that they were considered extensions of identity itself. In many cases, replacing the seal would have been nearly impossible because every carving was unique. Today, collectors and museums prize ancient white agate seals not for their gemstone value, but because each one preserves a direct connection to the birth of organized commerce. Every engraved line records a moment when trust became something that could be held in the hand. Yet even a stone that helped build the world's earliest trade networks wasn't the most revered white treasure of the ancient world. The next one crossed continents, entered temples, and became a symbol of spiritual authority that outlived the empires that first embraced it. Number 9. White chalcedony. Imagine walking into an ancient temple carrying a single white stone. It wasn't an offering of wealth, nor was it meant to impress anyone with dazzling brilliance. Instead, people believed this quiet, milky stone could carry prayers, protect promises, and preserve a person's reputation long after they were gone. Its greatest power wasn't its appearance, it was the trust people placed in it. That stone was white chalcedony. Unlike gold, which proclaimed status, white chalcedony became associated with wisdom, sincerity, and calm judgment across several ancient civilizations. Greek craftsmen carved it into engraved signet rings worn by statesmen and philosophers, while Roman artisans transformed it into finely detailed cameos that often depicted emperors, gods, and important historical figures. Its soft, even color created the perfect canvas for intricate carvings, allowing remarkable detail to stand out without the distraction of bold patterns. The reason lay deep within the stone itself. White chalcedony is composed of microscopic, interlocking quartz crystals, packed so tightly that individual crystals cannot be seen with the naked eye. This dense structure gives the stone a smooth, almost waxy appearance, while making it durable enough for detailed engraving. Unlike many brittle gemstones, it could withstand years of handling without losing its delicate carved features. Then historians uncovered something unexpected. Many surviving white chalcedony signet rings show surprisingly little wear, suggesting they were not everyday jewelry at all. Instead, some were likely reserved for official ceremonies, important legal agreements, or sacred rituals where authenticity and honor mattered more than displays of wealth. In other words, these stones weren't valuable because they glittered. They were valuable because people trusted what they represented. Today, museums and serious collectors often look beyond polished gems to seek ancient carved chalcedony artifacts with documented origins. The engraving itself frequently tells a richer story than the material, revealing political alliances, religious beliefs, and artistic traditions that would otherwise have disappeared into history. Thousands of years later, white chalcedony still reminds us that the most valuable treasures are sometimes the ones that quietly witness history instead of dominating it. But if this white stone became the language of trust, the next one almost disappeared from history altogether, despite belonging to one of the most famous gemstone families ever discovered. Number 8. Goshenite. For centuries, rulers competed for emeralds. Nobles admired aquamarines. Yet hidden behind these famous gemstones was a quiet, colorless crystal that shared the very same family, but almost no one remembered its name. Ironically, what made it extraordinary was precisely what it lacked: color. That forgotten treasure was Goshenite, the purest variety of the mineral beryl. Long before modern mineralogy gave it a name, exceptionally clear beryl was already valued in parts of the ancient world for its remarkable transparency. Historians believe polished crystals were occasionally fashioned into primitive lenses, ornamental objects, and engraved seals long before high-quality optical glass became widely available. While emeralds became symbols of wealth, the pure, colorless form offered something different: clarity without distraction. Its formation is just as remarkable. Goshenite develops deep within pegmatites, where mineral-rich magma cools slowly over immense spans of geological time. Unlike emerald or aquamarine, which owe their colors to trace elements such as chromium or iron, Goshenite contains almost none of these impurities. That chemical purity allows light to pass through the crystal with exceptional transparency, making flawless specimens surprisingly uncommon despite the mineral family's global distribution. But here's what surprised even mineral historians. For generations, many remarkable Goshenite crystals were overlooked simply because they lacked vivid color. Collectors and jewelers naturally gravitated toward emeralds and aquamarines, leaving some extraordinary specimens preserved in scientific collections rather than royal jewelry. Today, that perspective has shifted. Museums increasingly appreciate Goshenite not as an unfinished emerald, but as one of the finest examples of nature's ability to create purity through simplicity. Among advanced mineral collectors, sharply terminated, damage-free Goshenite crystals with documented localities are especially prized because they reveal every stage of their natural growth. Their value lies not in brilliance alone, but in the geological story locked inside each flawless face. Perhaps that's Goshenite's greatest lesson. History often celebrates the loudest treasures first, only to rediscover the quiet masterpieces centuries later. Yet even this forgotten crystal couldn't match the next white stone, a mineral so perfectly formed that collectors began valuing nature's craftsmanship above the work of any jeweler. Number 7. White danburite. Perfection is a dangerous word in the natural world. Crystals crack. Minerals trap impurities. Time leaves scars on almost everything it creates. Yet hidden deep within a handful of ancient mountain ranges, nature occasionally produced a white crystal so remarkably flawless that many collectors refused to cut it at all. They believed no human hand could improve what Earth had already perfected. That crystal is white danburite. Although formally identified in the 19th century near Danbury, Connecticut, the geological story of danburite began millions of years earlier. It formed when boron-rich hydrothermal fluids slowly crystallized within fractures deep inside limestone, altered by intense heat and pressure. Those highly unusual conditions occur far less frequently than the environments that produce quartz or feldspar, making fine danburite deposits genuinely uncommon. Its scientific appeal is matched by an extraordinary visual quality. High-grade white danburite often develops with exceptional transparency and naturally sharp crystal faces, reflecting light with surprising brilliance despite not belonging to the diamond family. But unlike gemstones traditionally cut to maximize sparkle, many of the world's finest danburite specimens remain exactly as they were found. For collectors, the untouched crystal is often the greater prize. That brings us to the twist. In most gemstones, cutting increases value. With white danburite, the opposite can be true. A museum-quality crystal with flawless natural terminations, perfect symmetry, and documented provenance may be considered more desirable than a faceted stone carved from the same crystal. Here, nature, not the lapidary, becomes the master artist. Today, leading mineral museums and advanced collectors compete for complete, undamaged danburite crystals from classic localities in Mexico, Japan, Myanmar, and the United States. Their interest isn't driven by fashion or jewelry trends, but by the rarity of finding crystals that survived millions of years of geological upheaval without losing their pristine form. As several historic collecting localities become increasingly difficult to access, specimens with reliable provenance continue to grow in scientific and historical importance. White danburite quietly reminds us that true perfection is rarely created. It is discovered. But if this crystal earned admiration because of nature's precision, the next white stone captivated entire civilizations for a completely different reason. It seemed to hold something no scientist could explain for centuries: the light of the moon itself. Number 6. White moonstone. On certain nights, ancient travelers believed they weren't carrying an ordinary stone at all. As moonlight drifted across its milky surface, a soft glow appeared to move from within, as though a living light had been trapped beneath the crystal. To many civilizations, it wasn't an illusion. It was evidence that the moon itself had been captured inside a stone. That mysterious treasure was white moonstone. For more than 2,000 years, white moonstone has occupied a unique place in human history. In ancient India, it was regarded as a sacred stone that should never be displayed on dark cloth because its mysterious glow was believed to lose its spiritual purity. Roman writers, meanwhile, imagined the stone formed from frozen moonbeams, associating it with lunar deities and the changing cycles of nature. Across cultures, its quiet appearance inspired beliefs that reached far beyond wealth, making it a symbol of guidance, intuition, and renewal rather than material luxury. Modern science eventually uncovered the secret that ancient civilizations could only imagine. White moonstone belongs to the feldspar family, and its famous floating glow, known as adulorescence, is created when light scatters between microscopic layers of two intergrown feldspar minerals. Instead of reflecting light directly like a mirror, the stone bends and diffuses it beneath the surface, creating the illusion that pale blue or silvery light is slowly drifting through the crystal. No pigments, coatings, or hidden colors are responsible. Only an extraordinary internal structure created by nature over millions of years. But here's the remarkable twist. For centuries, many believed the glow came from supernatural forces. Today, collectors value that very same phenomenon for the opposite reason. It is one of nature's most elegant optical achievements. The finest white moonstones display a strong, centered adulorescence across a clean, translucent body, a combination that remains surprisingly difficult to find even in productive deposits. Leading museums and serious gemstone collectors increasingly favor untreated moonstones with exceptional optical quality because every shimmering movement is a permanent record of the crystal's internal architecture. It is one of the few gemstones whose greatest beauty comes not from color, but from the way it controls light itself. Yet as mesmerizing as moonlight trapped inside a stone may seem, the next white treasure accomplished something even more astonishing. It convinced an entire empire that a single pale gemstone could contain every color in the natural world, without containing any color at all. Number 5. White opal. Imagine presenting an emperor with a single white stone that appeared almost ordinary, until it caught the light. Suddenly, flashes of crimson, emerald, sapphire, and gold erupted from within, as if an entire rainbow had been hidden beneath its pale surface. To ancient observers, it wasn't merely beautiful. It seemed impossible. That extraordinary stone was white opal. Among the Romans, opal became one of the most admired gemstones in the empire. The Roman scholar Pliny the Elder famously described it as a stone that combined the finest qualities of every precious gem into one. According to historical accounts, the senator Nonius treasured a magnificent opal so highly that when demanded by Mark Antony, he chose exile over surrendering it. Whether admired for its beauty or its symbolism, the story reflects just how deeply exceptional opals were valued in the ancient world. For centuries, no one understood how a white stone could produce so many colors without containing colorful minerals. The answer turned out to be even more astonishing than the legends. White opal is composed of millions of microscopic silica spheres arranged in remarkably regular patterns. As light passes through these tiny spheres, it bends and interferes with itself, creating the famous play of color. The colors aren't pigments at all. They're the result of physics operating on an almost unimaginably small scale. But here's the twist that transformed the way collectors viewed white opal. Two stones may appear nearly identical at first glance, yet one can be dramatically more desirable because of the brightness, stability, and pattern of its play of color. Broad flashes, rolling waves, or rare mosaic-like patterns are all products of natural geological precision that cannot simply be manufactured on demand. Today, museums and advanced collectors seek untreated white opals with documented provenance, particularly those from Australia's historic fields, where some of the world's finest specimens have been unearthed. Each stone is appreciated not only as a gemstone, but also as a natural optical masterpiece, one that scientists continue studying to better understand how ordered microscopic structures manipulate light. White opal proved that nature didn't need vivid pigments to create breathtaking color. Yet even a stone capable of hiding an entire rainbow would soon be overshadowed by another white treasure, one that spent centuries wearing the wrong identity inside the crowns of kings. Number 4. White spinel. For centuries, kings believed they possessed one of the world's greatest treasures. It adorned royal crowns, ceremonial regalia, and the collections of powerful dynasties. Only much later did science reveal an astonishing truth. They had been admiring the wrong gemstone all along. That overlooked treasure was white spinel. Unlike rubies or sapphires, white spinel rarely became the star of ancient legends. Instead, it quietly earned a reputation among skilled lapidaries for its remarkable clarity and durability. Formed deep within metamorphic rocks under intense heat and pressure, the finest white specimens developed with exceptional transparency and a brilliance that rivaled far more famous gemstones. Before modern gemology existed, distinguishing spinel from other colorless gems was often impossible without specialized knowledge. Its greatest story emerged not from geology, but from history. For hundreds of years, royal treasuries across Europe and Asia unknowingly housed spinels that had been cataloged as entirely different gemstones. While the most famous examples involve red spinels, mistaken for rubies, those discoveries completely transformed how historians viewed the entire spinel family, including its rare white variety. The revelation reminded the world that beauty alone can deceive even the wealthiest and most powerful collectors. The science behind that confusion is equally fascinating. Spinel's crystal structure and optical properties can produce extraordinary brilliance, while its hardness of 8 on the Mohs scale makes it durable enough for generations of wear. Yet unlike sapphire or diamond, white spinel forms under a different geological recipe, giving each crystal subtle characteristics that modern laboratories can identify with precision, but ancient jewelers never could. Here's the twist. What was once dismissed as a mistaken identity has become one of white spinel's greatest strengths. Today's collectors appreciate it not because it imitates another gemstone, but because it represents an important chapter in the history of gemology itself. Untreated, high-clarity white spinels with reliable provenance are increasingly respected by museums and advanced collectors as authentic examples of nature's craftsmanship rather than substitutes for more famous stones. White spinel teaches an unexpected lesson. Sometimes history's greatest treasures weren't misunderstood because they lacked value. They were misunderstood because they possessed too much. But even a gemstone that fooled generations of royalty couldn't rival the next white stone, whose extraordinary purity became the standard by which every other colorless gemstone would eventually be judged. Number 3. White sapphire. For thousands of years, the world's most prized gemstones were celebrated for their color. Emeralds glowed green, rubies burned red, and sapphires were admired for their royal blue. Yet hidden within the same mineral family was a nearly colorless crystal that challenged one simple idea. Perhaps true perfection wasn't defined by color at all. That remarkable gemstone is white sapphire. Ancient traders carried sapphires across Asia and the Mediterranean, long before scientists understood why they appeared in different colors. While blue sapphires became symbols of royalty and divine favor, the rare colorless crystals were admired for a different reason. Their remarkable clarity made them symbols of purity, honesty, and wisdom, qualities many rulers valued more highly than outward displays of wealth. In several royal courts, pale sapphires were set into ceremonial jewelry, not to attract attention, but to represent integrity and clear judgment. The explanation lies deep within the crystal itself. White sapphire is the purest colorless variety of corundum, one of the hardest natural minerals on Earth. Ranking 9 on the Mohs hardness scale, it is surpassed only by diamond in scratch resistance. Unlike its blue counterpart, white sapphire contains almost none of the trace elements, such as iron or titanium, that create sapphire's famous colors. What remains is a crystal whose greatest beauty comes from exceptional purity rather than vivid pigmentation. But here's the surprise. For centuries, many colorless sapphires were overlooked because they lacked the dramatic appearance collectors expected. Only after modern gemology advanced did experts begin appreciating these stones for what they truly were. Naturally colorless corundum, created under geological conditions that excluded nearly every coloring impurity. In other words, what earlier generations viewed as an absence of color is now recognized as evidence of extraordinary natural chemistry. Today, museums and serious collectors seek untreated white sapphires with exceptional transparency and documented origins from classic localities such as Sri Lanka and Myanmar. These specimens are valued not because they imitate diamonds, but because they represent one of nature's purest expressions of the corundum family. White sapphire quietly proved that brilliance doesn't always come from color. Yet even its remarkable purity could not surpass the white treasure that entire civilizations carried across deserts, buried beside emperors, and ultimately valued above gold itself. Number 2. White coral. What if one of the ancient world's most treasured white stones never came from a mountain at all? For centuries, merchants transported it alongside gold, ivory, and precious gemstones. Priests placed it in sacred objects. Noble families commissioned master craftsmen to carve it into delicate ornaments that could take months to complete. To the people who prized it, its origin mattered far less than what it represented: purity, protection, and prestige. That remarkable treasure was white coral. Unlike the other white treasures in this countdown, white coral was born beneath the sea. Over countless generations, tiny marine organisms slowly built intricate calcium carbonate skeletons that eventually became the material admired by ancient civilizations. Long before anyone understood marine biology, people believed these pale branches possessed unusual protective qualities, making them popular in ceremonial objects, amulets, and luxury carvings throughout parts of the Mediterranean and Asia. Its scientific story is just as extraordinary. White coral is not a mineral crystal, but an organic gem material, created by living colonies rather than geological heat and pressure. That single fact makes it unique among the white treasures we've explored. Every polished piece represents the accumulated growth of countless tiny organisms over many years, shaped by stable marine environments that cannot be recreated overnight. But here's the twist. The very quality that once made white coral abundant enough for artisans to carve has become the reason exceptional historic pieces are now far more significant than newly fashioned ones. Modern conservation efforts and international regulations exist because many coral ecosystems require careful protection. As a result, museums and collectors increasingly value documented antique white coral carvings not only for their craftsmanship, but also for the historical stories they preserve. Today, white coral reminds us that the greatest treasures are not always measured by rarity alone. Sometimes they become priceless because the world chooses to protect what remains rather than replace what has been lost. And yet, astonishing as white coral's journey from the sea may be, it still wasn't the white treasure that an entire civilization elevated above gold itself. That final stone wasn't simply collected or admired. It became the very language of power, virtue, and eternity. 1. Hittite white nephrite jade, mutton fat jade. Imagine standing before an emperor with two gifts. In one hand, a chest overflowing with gold. In the other, a single creamy white stone carved with extraordinary precision. To most people, the choice would seem obvious. Yet for more than 2,000 years, many of China's rulers chose the stone. That stone was Hittite white nephrite jade, often celebrated in its finest form as mutton fat jade. Few natural materials have shaped a civilization's identity as profoundly as this remarkable white stone. Long before diamonds became symbols of luxury, white nephrite jade had already become the ultimate expression of virtue, authority, and eternity. Its story begins along the ancient rivers flowing from the Kunlun Mountains in what is now Xinjiang. For centuries, traders carried rough jade across the Silk Road toward the imperial capitals, where master craftsmen transformed it into ceremonial discs, imperial seals, ritual vessels, and objects reserved for the highest ranks of society. Gold could be accumulated. Jade, however, had to be earned through status, craftsmanship, and cultural meaning. Ancient Chinese philosophers elevated that meaning even further. Confucian scholars associated jade with the highest human virtues: wisdom, compassion, justice, humility, and integrity. A ruler could display wealth through gold, but jade reflected character. That distinction explains why imperial workshops devoted extraordinary effort to carving flawless white nephrite, despite its exceptional toughness. Its densely interwoven amphibole fibers make nephrite remarkably resistant to breaking, allowing masterpieces to survive for centuries while challenging even the most skilled artisans. Then comes the remarkable twist. Modern collectors often discover that the most valuable white nephrite is not the brightest white. Instead, experts prize a warm, creamy translucence known as mutton fat jade. This soft, almost luminous texture is extraordinarily difficult to find in nature and has remained the benchmark of quality for generations. The very feature that appears understated to casual observers is precisely what specialists admire most. Today, the finest historic Hittite jade carvings reside in museums and prestigious collections around the world. Their importance extends far beyond mineralogy or craftsmanship. They preserve the philosophy of an entire civilization that believed the greatest treasure was not the one that glittered the most, but the one that represented virtue itself. Perhaps that's why this white stone achieved something gold never could. Gold measured wealth. Diamonds came to symbolize luxury, but white nephrite jade became the soul of an empire. History reminds us that humanity has never valued treasures for beauty alone. These extraordinary white stones earned their place through the civilizations that trusted them, the beliefs they inspired, and the stories they carried across thousands of years. Which one surprised you the most? Was it the rainbow hidden inside white opal, the forgotten purity of Goshenite, or the timeless legacy of Hittite white nephrite jade? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy uncovering the hidden history behind Earth's greatest treasures, be sure to subscribe. Our next journey begins with another remarkable story waiting to be discovered.